Hey guys, we're going to do just a short video here on Marxist epistemology. We're not going to really cover Marxism as far as economics or politics. I mean, economically, we'll put some links to some deep dives if you want to get into it a little bit deeper. But as far as like economics, you can go to the Mises Institute. Ludwig von Mises in the 1920s criticized the problem of calculation with socialism, in that you couldn't calculate any prices because you wouldn't know what a price was without a free market. There wouldn't be a way to determine that. So we won't get into some of that stuff or the politics, but just the epistemology, like how, if Marxism is as a philosophy, how could it support itself? How could it justify belief in itself? So from presuppositional standpoint, what we're looking at is, if a system of thought cannot justify belief in itself, then it basically disqualifies itself from belief. It's self-refuting. And we see that basically Marxism falls into that category, as does everything other than Christianity. But Marxism, basically, just kind of give you a summary, he viewed it from an evolutionary standpoint that, it was a takeoff of Hegel, but that there's this process of development basically that's occurring through history, and we're going through these phases and stages of development through evolutionary development, which will ultimately lead deterministically to this utopia, if you will. Man returns to like a garden, or ends in a Garden of Eden type of situation where he's free from the constraints of necessity, and he's free to become what he wants to be and pursue the interests that he desires, and that he will basically be free from economically, and that this is a guarantee, like this will happen through nature, just like he said there's these quantitative differences that happen until a qualitative difference occurs, kind of like incrementally, water is heated up until it finally qualitatively turns into steam. It turns into something else. And so he believes that history is going to work out that way. There'll be these tensions that will ultimately cause this revolution into this utopia. There's this short term of it. I'm giving you, there's more to it, and I'm sure Marxists, which I'll give you a link to someone that's trying to defend it, but there are Marxists who would, I'm sure, want to spend more time developing it. But my point here is just to show you that it can't justify itself, because it doesn't account for the problems of philosophy, such as universals, in particular sense perception, all the things that we went through with the problems of philosophy. It doesn't account for these things. Basically, it assumes uniformities in nature, causation. It just assumes these things. They're absolute. It doesn't have to qualify why, why these things exist. It doesn't have to explain that, that these causal agents are guaranteed, that there's no guarantor, which we would say is God, the lawgiver. Well, they dismiss all that and say it just is, basically. This is how they argue. The sense perception just is that, the way you prove it, Marx would argue, against determinism, against charges of determinism, that you just go out and change the world. You don't worry about all that. It's academic. You just go out and change the world. But the charges are deterministic. They're accurate. And determinism is a fatal flaw in a philosophy, because if your philosophy ends in determinism, you don't know it to be true. All you know is there are things in your mind that you don't control. And you can't say, well, I changed my mind. All you can say is, well, my mind changed. So that's self-refuting there. But it doesn't account for laws of logic. It doesn't account for how sense perception is functional or reliable. It tells you that it is, but it doesn't try to justify how it is. And that's not, that's basically a bankruptcy. It's an admission that we don't have an answer, but just don't worry about it, which is how most people live their lives anyway. We don't have an answer, but just don't worry about it. But basically, Marx didn't see this as a utopia. He saw this as scientific socialism, that this will occur, and that he had figured this out, which, again, if determinism is true, you can't know that it's true. All you can say is things are in my mind that I don't control. But in my mind is not free. There's no real freedom of person. I'm nothing more, my thoughts are nothing more than the effects of some external cause that I don't control. I don't control chemistry with my brain, and so my thoughts are just chemical reactions in my brain, so they just happen. So it's a bankrupt philosophy that way. But as far as being scientific, Bertrand Russell, who himself sympathetic to Marx, writes this of his philosophy. He says in this page 754, he says, broadly speaking, all the elements in Marx's philosophy which are derived from Hegel are unscientific in the sense that there is no reason whatever to suppose them true. There's no way to prove it. There's no way to justify it. He just asserts these things, and so that's one of the problems. And another book, if you're interested in, as far as Marx being a pawn of the devil, is this book here, which is Paul Kruger. We'll put a link to an interview with him below, but that the guy was demon possessed. This is a doctrine of devils, and which again, Marxism doesn't justify belief in itself because it gives no accounting of how there are universal laws of logic and math. It gives no accounting of how we're able to utilize these things. It just says we'll just go and see. The proof is in the pudding. But to say that history is a continual developing series of improvements, like this law of progress is this absolute law through history, is an unprovable assumption, and there's no way to assume, and there's no reason even to think that you would know that. There's no way to justify knowledge in general, much less that particular fact, that as a fact. There's no way to justify itself. So even though it's become such a popular doctrine throughout the last 150 years, there's no reason to justify belief in it. It doesn't answer the basic questions of philosophy as Christianity would. It assumes the very things that Christianity provides, and it tries to build upon those things. But again, if the foundation is just supposition and assertion, arbitrary assertion there's no reason to continue to believe it. So anything that can be arbitrarily asserted can be arbitrarily denied, and that's basically what we have here. So I'll put some links in the description below for you to interact with, and let me know what you think.